Here, filling in for Tom Murphy, who's somewhere in Western Australia. We're not sure where, but if we find him, we'll be sure to let you know. Welcome to our online experience. Great to have you here for those of you who are on the journey and with us here every week. And for those of you that are joining us for the very first time, an extra special welcome to you. We've been expecting you. Hey, whether you've been with us for some time or whether you are indeed here for the first time today, can I strongly encourage you to like, to subscribe, and to share this also with people you think that this will help. So today's worship partner are one of my personal favorites, probably shouldn't say that, Mosaic MSC, coming all the way from Los Angeles, USA. Words are going to be on the screen. Encourage you to join in and let's worship together.
Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name, still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live, and call these lungs to see once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Your name
tongue on my lips every morning. 'Cause you are faithful in every way. And I will declare that your love lasts forever. And no need to worry, my eyes fixed on you. 'Cause you have my heart, all of my life. I will lift your name on high, King of all. 'Cause you are my strength, the beginning and the end. And I will seek you every day, King of all. Say your love makes her either, bringing me life wherever he goes. And I feel the wind of his spirit around me. And I'm chasing after wherever he goes. 'Cause you have my heart, all of my life. I will lift your name on high, King of all. 'Cause you are my strength, the beginning and the end. And I will seek you every day, King of all. And little hearts sing to you, and we will follow you. Let your light shine and show us who we are, King of all, King of all. You're King of all, King of You have my heart, all of my life. And I will lift your name on high, King of all. 'Cause you are my strength, the beginning and the end. I will seek you every day, King of all. You're King of all, King of all.
Okay, so today is week 2 of a brand new series we launched last week called The World Spins Madly On Volume 1. If you missed last week, you can go back and watch that on this channel, or you can find it in audio format on any of your favorite podcast apps. Just type in Elevate Church Perth and we'll pop up. Maybe subscribe to that as well so you can take us with you. Every single week we publish a brand new message, just like every single week we have a brand new online experience. Anyway, today, week 2 of The World Spins Madly On, Volume 1. Oh, hey there, Elevate friends and family. Great to have you with us today. Now, part of our home entertainment setup includes what's called a fetch box. Here in Australia, it's a service that aggregates a bunch of channels, streaming services, etc., from many sources all around the world. and aggregates them into one place that you can find them. Now, I got this primarily to watch NFL games, which we don't really get access to here in Australia otherwise, as well as some other sporting channels and sporting events. However, whilst I'm typically watching said sporting events, I'll be shown commercials from some of the other channels that come packaged with this fetch box. Channels that I probably won't ever watch, but they just happen to be there, so you get fed the commercials. One of which, and it's a channel I've never watched, pushes me some ads for a show called Sister Wives. Now, I've never watched the show. My best advice to you is don't ever watch the show. But purely from the commercials, I kind of think I understand the premise of the show, which is simply that there's one guy who has a bunch of women whom he's not married to, but they are in a sort of de facto married relationship, but not one woman, he's got a fleet of women. And this show kind of follows them around, how they interact and so on and so forth. And again, judging purely from the commercials, it kind of goes about how you'd expect it to go. And that is that among these sister wives who are demanding equal attention, competing for equal attention, maybe demanding more attention, is just constant arguing and jealousy and bickering. And anyway, it's not what I would call compelling TV viewing, but this whole idea that they're going at each other, these sister wives, it's not shocking to me, because we're not wired by God in this way to somehow have these vital love relationships all to be maintained on the same level. In fact, instead, God's wired us to be devoted to one other human and to one true God. I want you to hold that thought. I'll come back to that a little bit later on. If you've got your smartphone, how about you pop open the camera app and scan this flow code? It's going to take you to 1 Kings chapter 18. While you're doing that, let me catch you up. We launched a series last week called The World Spins Madly On Volume 1. Why do we call it that? Because the world spins madly on. It just does. And as followers of Jesus, we're not merely called to hold the line, we're actually called to turn the tide. So over this 4-week series, we're going to be looking at lessons from a man who God raised up to be a spokesperson, a prophet. His name is Elijah. And Elijah entered the pages of history after the nation of Israel had been ruled by 19 consecutive evil kings over a 200-year period. And when Elijah enters the pages of history, Israel was up to its 19th evil king, and this one was the worst of the worst. He's a guy named Ahab. Last week, we looked at how Elijah actually got the opportunity to speak truth to power and confront King Ahab on God's behalf and effectively stage an extreme intervention, declaring that there will be drought in the land, that God's going to turn off the tap until he decides not to. And that in that period of time, Israel needs to take a good hard look at itself and have the opportunity to return back to worshiping their one true God. After Elijah did confront the king, God instructed him to get out of there and essentially kind of make himself scarce, because King Ahab actually put a bounty on Elijah's life. This was not a popular thing that Ahab had received from Elijah. And God took Elijah through this preparation process, and Elijah started to experience miracles and more miracles. And then God led Elijah back into harm's way, back to confront King Ahab once again. The moment that Ahab saw Elijah, he said, "Oh, so it's you, old troublemaker." "It's not I who caused you trouble in Israel," said Elijah, "but you and your government. You've dumped God's ways and commands and run off after the local gods, the Baals." Now, he uses the term local gods. We could simply translate that as idols. Now, literally, back in those times, especially when it came to the Baals, the people would actually craft statues and images and so on to their gods and worship those images as a representation of those gods. And it was very, very socially acceptable back then. And whilst we might not have doodads and trinkets that we worship today as idols, we definitely have idols, because an idol is simply defined as anything or anyone in your life that takes priority over God. And by this definition, even good things can become idols. And so today, many of the idols we have are also socially acceptable. And in fact, not only socially acceptable, many of them are actually strongly encouraged. Like, this is the stuff you have to place as the most important thing. This is the stuff you have to devote yourself to. This is the stuff you have to prioritize and chase after and sacrifice for. And we sit and we say, well, everyone's doing it. I mean, you know, and if we're not careful, we get sucked in to elevating some of these idols to be taking the place and become more important in our lives than God. Look, can I be honest? And I say this in a very loving way. If you're not sure if you have any idols, just email me through your bank account statements and maybe like a running diary of what you've spent your time on, just let's say over the last month, 2 months maybe. And I'd be able to look through them and get a pretty clear idea of whether or not you've got some idols based on what you've spent your time in, what you've spent your money on. There's a little clue right there. And some examples of modern day idols is money and stuff. Maybe it's the most obvious one. You know, you're spending more than you earn and you're finding yourself enslaved to consumer debt. You're confusing wants with needs. Maybe comfort. You know, it's never been easier in the history of humanity to prioritize comfort, and we are seeing increasingly the default of people being like, well, if I don't want to do it, I'm just not going to do it. Or, well, okay, I'll do it, but if it gets hard, then I'm just going to quit. And that mindset misses out on opportunities to grow and to have an impact and to become more resilient and to do and push through and experience breakthrough and miracles beyond our comfort zone. Status can be an idol. You know, you care about clothing labels and you make sure you wear the labels on the outside. Your car brand matters. What postcode you live in matters. Okay, I said before we don't necessarily have objects like the Baals, but like chances are you literally have your phone within arm's reach. And your provider can actually send you a summary of how much time you've been spending on your phone daily, weekly. And I wonder if for some of you, it might be a shockingly large amount of time spent doom scrolling on your phone. Hobbies can become an idol, that you just are consumed by what started out as a recreational hobby, and now you're attention and money and time is spent prioritizing that hobby. Here's another one. This one, when we talk about it, doesn't necessarily win any popularity contests, but the reality is your kids can become an idol. You know, if you find, like, I'm speaking to parents here, if you find that your commitment to be invested and involved in your local church gets regularly displaced by your kids' other activities, then I just strongly encourage you to fast forward to the next generation in your family. Because here's my observation, and this is observation over nearly 30 years of church leadership, is I have seen countless times when parents have prioritized their kids' activities over their church commitment. They're saying that church is optional and you can just ratchet it up and down. What I've then seen is it's optional for that generation. The next generation, it's not even on their list of options. And I'm not saying don't love your kids. On the contrary, I'm saying the best way you can love your kids is by leading your household and declaring, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. When your kids meet Jesus, he's not going to give them a maths competition or run them through a spelling bee. He's going to ask them, did you do what I asked you to do with what I entrusted to you? That's the number one most important thing. All right, so there's just a flyover. There's a longer list of idols. Some maybe came to mind for you as I was walking through that list. But here's what I want us to understand. False gods promise what only the true God provides. And the reality for the Israelites when Elijah entered the pages of history isn't that they'd stopped believing in God, it's that they stopped worshiping him. He was no longer the number one priority in their lives. They hadn't ditched him, they just had bumped him down the list. But the instructive point in this is that we're not called merely to believe in God. We're called to worship him, to serve him, to be devoted to him, to give ourselves to him, to make him our number one priority every day in every way. Not, and here it is, to treat him like a sister wife, competing for the attention and the love and the service and the worship, just like all the other idols, gods, false gods, made up gods. So this is Elijah. Says to King Ahab, here's what I want you to do. Assemble everyone in Israel at Mount Carmel and make sure that the special pets of Jezebel, the 450 prophets of the local gods, the Baals, and the 400 prophets of the whore goddess Asherah are there. So Ahab summoned everyone in Israel, particularly the prophets, to Mount Carmel. And Elijah challenged the people, how long are you going to sit on the fence? If God is the real God, follow him. If it's Baal, follow him. Make up your minds. So let me translate that into 2023. How long are you going to sit on the fence? If God is the real God, follow him. If it's insert an idol, could it be one from my list? Could be one that, is there anything that you think, oh, yeah, okay. Shove it in there and take Elijah's intervention as a loving move from God. If God is the real God, follow him. If it's money and stuff, follow them. Go all in. Take out a loan you can't afford to repay and buy a car that does the same job as the one you're currently driving. Remortgage your house so you can do a luxe makeover, buying stuff with like the best brands and the best of everything even though you can't afford it. Do that. I mean, go all in. Move everything out of your Amazon wish list and shove it into your shopping cart and then hit the checkout thing. I mean, come on. Don't hold back. Go all in if money and stuff is God. And don't ever give any money away, because that's like the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. I mean, if it's your hobbies, follow them. Go all in. Make sure that when someone walks into your house, it is clear what you love, what you're into. Too much? Yeah, well, then you're going to really love this one. Again, I acknowledge it's not a popular statement, but it's so important. If your kids are your real God, follow them. Go all in. Make sure that the only things you ever post to social media are academic awards and sporting achievements and fun at the birthday party and the latest outing. Again, these are all good things, but an idol can, by definition, be a good thing that's become the God thing, the most important to you. I get excited when I see parents posting about what their kids learned at Elevate Kids, something that were taught that morning, something about God and who He is and who they are and what God sees in them, and their future and their calling and their potential. I love to see parents posting things about what they're praying for and with their kids. Maybe something from a devotional or Bible plan or some... Now, if a warning light's going on for you with any of this, it's not guilt. Guilt's from the devil. Guilt is not of God. It's going to be conviction. It's going to be a warning light that says, hey, I want you to pay attention to what's been getting your attention. And so, unsurprisingly, when Elijah had said to the people of Israel gathered on Mount Carmel, if God is the real God, follow Him. But if the false gods, the worldly gods, the local gods, the idols, the Baals are the real God, follow them. How long are you going to sit on the fence? Make up your minds. Nobody said a word. Nobody made a move because they started to feel convicted. And then Elijah said, look, I'm the only prophet of God left in Israel. All the others had been slaughtered by Ahab and his wife Jezebel. So I'm the only prophet of God left in Israel, and then there are 450 prophets of Baal. So here we got 1 versus 450. Let the Baal prophets bring up 2 oxen, let them pick one, butcher it, and lay it out on an altar of firewood, but don't ignite it. I'll take the other ox, cut it up, and lay it on the wood. But neither will I light the fire. Then you pray to your gods, and I'll pray to God. And the God who answers with fire will prove to be, in fact, God. Now, one thing to understand is that the people had created this god Baal, and one of his attributes is he was considered to be in control of the skies. Last week we said they believed he was in control of the rain, which God proved he wasn't. It would also meant he was in charge of the sun. And so if anyone could shoot down fire and burn up an oxen, it was clearly going to be Baal. So this is a very, very strategic challenge coming from Elijah. So the prophets of Baal took the ox he'd given them, prepared it for the altar, and then prayed to Baal. And they prayed all morning long, "Oh, Baal, answer us," but nothing happened. Not so much as a whisper of breeze. Desperate, they jumped and stomped on the altar they'd made. By noon, Elijah started making fun of them, taunting. "Call a little louder. I mean, he is a god after all. Well, maybe he's off meditating somewhere or other. Or maybe he's gotten involved in a project. Or maybe he's on vacation. You don't suppose he's overslept, do you? And needs to be waked up." And they kept on going, and they escalated their efforts to convince Baal to burn up this oxen, and nothing happened. And so Elijah said, "All right, fellas, time out. My turn." So when it was time for the sacrifice to be offered, Elijah, the prophet, came up and prayed, "O God, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, make it known right now that you are the God, our God in Israel, that I'm your servant and that I'm doing what I'm doing under your orders. Answer me, God. Oh, answer me and reveal to this people that you are God, the true God, and that you are giving these people another chance at repentance." Immediately, the fire of God fell and burned up the offering, the wood, the stones, the dirt, and even water that they put in a trench around. All the people saw it happen and fell on their faces in awed worship, exclaiming, "God is the true God. God is the true God." And so as we land this today, I'm aware there might be a potential question. Well, why doesn't God do stuff like that today? I mean, if he was just coming around burning up things out of the sky, I mean, surely more people would believe in him. I mean, that sort of miracle is going to get people's attention. Well, here's the reality. God is doing miracles right now. God is doing miracles in Elevate Church. God is doing miracles in other churches in our city, in our nation, and in the nations. You know, even for us at Elevate, we're seeing people being healed of a range of things, from minor through to very major things. Healed. Not just feeling a little bit better, healed. Breaking patterns of anxiety and depression that had been around for years and in some cases generations. We're seeing people experiencing God's miraculous provision. We're seeing relationships being restored, even when the people involved in the relationship had concluded it was irreparable. We're seeing business and career opportunities opening up, and this is becoming increasingly normal because we're increasingly giving our full devotion to the one true God. And if that wasn't enough to get your attention, 2,000 years ago, God pulled off the ultimate miracle. He sent his son Jesus into the world. His son Jesus was nailed to the cross and brutally killed, and 3 days later he rose from the dead. And we have the eyewitness accounts of that miracle happening, just like we have the eyewitness accounts of the Elijah miracles happening. How long are you going to sit on the fence? If God is the one true God, follow him. Make up your minds. So it's so exciting that together we're reaching more people and building more people. And one of the ways that that's being made possible is by more and more people investing financially into our mission. Ways to do it wherever you are in the world. You can do it electronically. On the screen right now, we're displaying that. You can do it via direct deposit, or you can do it using our Elevate Church AU app and the giving section there. Again, it's digital, it's anywhere in the world. So for those of you who've been giving already, fantastic. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. And if today that's maybe something that God's been nudging you to put him first in your financial world, then again, you can do that using the links on the screen. Okay, well, that's it for today. Next week, The World Spins Madly On, Volume 1, Week 3. And I'm going to be teaching about Elijah and what we can learn from him in the area of prayer. So, love to have you back and strongly encourage you. Invite someone, invite a few people, put on some coffee, throw pillows around, have a watch party, and let's together learn how we can be people who can turn the tide to see God's kingdom and God's priorities number one in our lives and in our spheres.